What if the love you've been chasing was never meant to come from the outside? In today's episode, we're going deep into one of the most misunderstood practices in self-development: self-love. But not the feel-good kind. We're talking about the inner discipline it takes to feel whole, safe, and worthy, even when the world goes silent. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Validation. We live in a world that constantly asks us to prove ourselves. From a young age, we're taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, that our worth is tied to how others perceive us. Get good grades to make your parents proud. Dress a certain way so you'll be liked. Say the right thing, do the right thing, perform, and maybe then you'll be enough. This is the illusion of validation. It's the quiet voice in your head that says, you're only okay if they approve of you. And while it can feel comforting, even motivating, to receive praise or recognition, the problem begins when we start to depend on it. When we seek constant reassurance from the outside, we give away our power. We make our self-worth something fragile, something that can rise or fall depending on someone else's opinion. Think about how much of your energy is spent trying to be enough in someone else's eyes. How much of your self-image is shaped by likes, comments, compliments, or silence? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The need for validation is a form of control, not over others but over ourselves. It's an attempt to control how we are seen, so we can avoid rejection, shame, or abandonment. But ironically, the more we chase approval, the more disconnected we become from who we really are. We start editing ourselves, saying yes when we mean no, smiling when we feel broken, agreeing when we deeply disagree. And over time, we lose touch with the one relationship that truly matters, the one we have with ourselves. Now let's pause for a moment. This isn't about blaming ourselves for wanting to be seen or loved. That desire is deeply human. But we have to ask, at what cost are we chasing that validation? And what are we truly hoping to feel when we get it? Most of the time, what we're craving isn't applause, it's peace. It's the feeling of being safe in our own skin. It's the relief of not needing to perform or impress, just to be accepted. And here's the paradox. You can't find that kind of safety out there. You build it within. That's why understanding the illusion of validation is the first step toward real self-love. Because once you see it clearly, you begin to take your power back. You realize that one person's opinion doesn't define your truth. That praise feels nice, but your worth existed long before it. That silence or criticism doesn't mean you're wrong or broken. It just means others are seeing you through their own lens. When you stop outsourcing your value, you create space for something deeper, something more real. You stop needing to prove and you start learning to be. To live in alignment with your values. To speak honestly even if your voice shakes. To respect your boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. To love yourself even when no one is clapping. That's not ego. That's not arrogance. That's freedom. So as we move forward into the next chapter, keep this in mind. Validation is not the enemy, but depending on it is. Let's unlearn the habit of chasing approval and begin the deeper journey of loving ourselves as we are, not as others need us to be. Chapter 2. What self-love really is. When most people hear the term self-love, their minds jump to comfort. A warm bath, a day off, indulgence, or affirmations in the mirror. While those things have their place, real self-love is something much deeper. It's not always soft. It's not always soothing. Sometimes self-love looks like facing your truth, the parts you'd rather avoid. Sometimes it's setting boundaries that make other people uncomfortable. Sometimes it's saying no to something that feels good because it doesn't serve who you're becoming. Self-love isn't a mood. It's a mindset, and more than that, a practice. It's not about how you feel about yourself on your best day. It's about how you treat yourself on your worst. You see, love without respect isn't really love. And yet, so many of us treat ourselves with a kind of conditional care. We show up for ourselves when we're performing well. We're kind to ourselves when we feel confident. But what about the days when we mess up? When we're anxious, tired, irritable, ashamed? That's when real self-love is tested. Because here's the truth. Self-love isn't about liking everything you see in the mirror. It's about not abandoning yourself when you don't. It's about offering yourself compassion when the old patterns return. It's about giving yourself the grace to evolve, not perfectly but intentionally. Let's get clear on something. Self-love isn't self-indulgence. It's not an excuse to avoid responsibility or growth. In fact, real self-love will often challenge you. Because it means holding yourself to a standard, not from shame but from care. It means taking care of your body not because you hate it but because you value it. It means honoring your time and energy because they're sacred, not disposable. It means telling yourself the truth even when it's uncomfortable. This kind of love is active. It's the daily decision to treat yourself with dignity, in how you speak to yourself, how you prioritize yourself, how you protect your peace. And it's not always obvious. Sometimes, self-love is turning down an invitation because you need rest. Sometimes, it's deleting the number of someone who keeps you in cycles of pain. Sometimes, it's waking up early to do the hard thing that your future self will thank you for. Self-love is personal responsibility. It's inner leadership. It says, I matter enough to show up for myself, even when no one else is watching. Let's talk about boundaries, because this is one of the clearest expressions of true self-love, and one of the hardest. A lot of people think boundaries are about keeping others out, but really they're about keeping yourself in alignment. They're not about punishment. They're about preservation. They're how you teach the world how to treat you, by how you treat yourself first. Saying no is a love letter to your energy. Choosing who has access to your vulnerability is a form of emotional self-respect. And honoring your limits is not selfish, it's wise. And then there's honesty, perhaps the most sacred form of self-love. Because self-love doesn't mean sugarcoating your flaws. It means being honest about where you're hurting, where you're healing, where you still have work to do, not with judgment but with commitment. It's the moment when you say, I love myself too much to stay in this pattern. And that's the power of it. Self-love isn't a static place you arrive at. It's a relationship you build every single day. You show up, you slip up, you learn, you forgive, and you begin again. Let me say that again, you begin again. That's self-love. Not perfection, not constant positivity, but presence, kindness, accountability, consistency. So as we move into the next chapter, keep asking yourself, not, do I love myself? But, how am I loving myself today? Is it through honesty? Through rest? Through a hard decision? Through a new boundary? The way you answer that, again and again, becomes your truth. Chapter 3, Creating Inner Safety. What happens when the world outside feels chaotic, uncertain, or even threatening? Most people look outward for something to hold on to. Validation, reassurance, distraction. Anything that helps them feel like they're okay, like they belong. But here's the problem. When your sense of safety comes only from the outside, you're constantly at risk. One opinion, one failure, one rejection can make your whole inner world collapse. That's why we need something deeper, a sense of inner safety. The kind that doesn't rely on how people treat you. The kind that doesn't disappear when life gets hard. But what does that actually mean? Let's break it down. Inner safety is the felt sense that you have your own back. That no matter what's happening out there, you won't abandon yourself in here. It's not about pretending to be unaffected. It's about knowing how to regulate your nervous system, calm your inner critic, and return to a place of grounded self-worth. Let's start with this truth. You can't feel safe in your life if you don't feel safe within yourself. And that means learning to sit with discomfort without judging it. It means being able to say, this is hard, without spiraling into, I can't handle this. It means allowing yourself to feel emotions fully, fear, sadness, shame, without labeling them as failures. Because emotional safety isn't about avoiding pain. It's about creating a space where all parts of you are welcome, even the ones that are still healing. So how do you build that? It starts with attunement. This is a practice of tuning into your own inner experience. Just like a parent would soothe a crying child, you learn to soothe your own emotional needs. Instead of suppressing your anxiety, you listen to it. You ask, what do I need right now to feel grounded? Instead of shaming your sadness, you meet it with kindness. This takes practice, and it starts with awareness. Try this. The next time you feel triggered or overwhelmed, pause. Take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this feeling rooted in the present moment, or in an old wound? Most of the time, it's not the situation itself, it's the story we attach to it. Creating inner safety means rewriting those stories. The ones that say you're not good enough. The ones that say you'll be abandoned. The ones that say you have to earn love by shrinking yourself. You rewrite them by becoming the source of love you once had to beg for. By becoming the voice of calm you didn't hear when you needed it most. That's how you become safe within yourself. Let's talk about self-regulation because it's a huge part of this. When your nervous system is dysregulated, your brain can't tell the difference between real danger and emotional discomfort. That's why a critical comment can feel like a threat, or why silence from someone you care about can feel like abandonment. But when you learn to regulate, you regain control of your response. You can pause, breathe, recenter. A few tools to help with this. Breathwork. Slow, deep breathing signals safety to your nervous system. Grounding techniques. Feel your feet on the floor. Name 5 things you can see, hear, or touch. Bring yourself back to the now. Movement. Shake out the tension. Go for a walk. Let the body complete the stress cycle. Self-talk. Speak to yourself with gentleness. I am safe. I can handle this. I'm here for me. And don't underestimate the power of routines. Small daily rituals, like journaling, stretching, or drinking tea without your phone, become anchors. They remind you that you're not just reacting to life. You're choosing how to meet it. One more important piece: boundaries with your own mind. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every fear is a prophecy. Not every mental loop needs to be indulged. Creating inner safety means learning to observe your thoughts without identifying with them. You say, "That's a thought," not, "That's the truth." You become the loving observer, not the panic participant. And the more you practice this, the more you discover something powerful. You don't need the world to be perfect in order to feel peace. You just need to feel at home within yourself. When you build this kind of safety, you stop chasing people just to feel whole. You stop proving yourself just to feel worthy. You stop shrinking just to stay accepted. Instead, you expand. You trust. You rest in the knowing that you've got you. That's inner safety. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's unshakable. So as we move into the next chapter, the role of discipline, remember this: self-love without inner safety is fragile. But with it, you become unbreakable. Chapter 4. The role of discipline. Let's get real about something most people don't want to talk about. Self-love isn't always soft. It isn't always gentle. It's not all about affirmations, warm baths, or doing what feels good in the moment. Sometimes self-love is discipline. It's making a choice that serves your long-term well-being, even when it's uncomfortable right now. It's waking up early to meditate when you'd rather stay in bed. It's saying no to people-pleasing when your entire body craves approval. It's sitting with your emotions instead of numbing them. Why? Because you're no longer trying to feel better temporarily. You're trying to be better, consistently, for yourself. Now, when people hear the word discipline, they often think of punishment, rules, restriction, rigidity. But true discipline, the kind that comes from self-love, isn't about control. It's about devotion. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. Think of it this way: you can have all the insight in the world. You can understand your traumas, know your patterns, even recognize your worth. But without action, without consistency, it won't create real change. Self-love becomes real when it becomes a practice. Something you do even when your mind resists. Even when no one else is watching. Even when you feel tired, insecure, or unmotivated. That's where discipline comes in. Let's break this down with a powerful truth. Discipline is self-respect in motion. It's what you do when your feelings fluctuate, but your values stay the same. It's showing up for yourself because you promise to, not because it's easy, not because you're inspired, but because you matter. So how do we build that kind of discipline? It starts by shifting your identity. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be someone who takes care of myself." You start saying, "I am someone who takes care of myself." That shift changes how you approach your day. You no longer rely on willpower, you rely on alignment. You act in accordance with who you've decided to be. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you build self-trust. And every time you break a promise to yourself, that trust gets weaker. So here's a practice. Start small but stay consistent. If you decide to journal for 3 minutes a day, keep that promise. If you choose to check in with yourself each morning, make it non-negotiable. Why? Because you're training your nervous system to believe, "I am safe with me. I am reliable. I will not abandon myself." Now let's talk about resistance. There will be days when you don't want to show up. When self-doubt creeps in. When fear whispers, "What's the point?" That's when discipline becomes your anchor. You gently acknowledge the resistance, but you don't negotiate with it. You say, "I hear you, and I'm still showing up." That's power. That's love. Another key part of this is boundaries, especially with yourself. Discipline means choosing what to focus on, what to say yes to, what to say no to. It's turning off the noise when you need quiet. It's protecting your energy so your future self can thrive. Think about the choices you make in silence, the habits no one sees, the commitments you make only to yourself. That's where transformation happens. Not in the loud moments, but in the quiet ones. Not when it's convenient, but when it's hard. Let's also address this. You won't be perfect. You'll miss a day. You'll forget a boundary. You'll slip into old patterns. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. The difference now is, you return quicker. You don't spiral into shame. You remember your why. And you get back up. Because discipline isn't about perfection. It's about coming home to yourself again and again. And when you start to live this way, something beautiful happens. You no longer rely on external motivation to love yourself. You become your own source of momentum. Every disciplined choice becomes a message to your inner child. You are safe now. I am here. I won't leave you. And isn't that what we've all needed all along? So as we move into the final chapter, becoming whole without approval, remember this. Self-love isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just the quiet strength to keep showing up, especially when no one else does. That's discipline. That's devotion. And that's real freedom. Chapter 5. Becoming whole without approval. Let's take a deep breath here, because this is the heart of the journey. Everything we've explored, from the illusion of validation to the discipline of self-love, has been leading to this one powerful truth. You don't need anyone's permission to be whole. Wholeness isn't something you earn through external praise. It's not something you unlock when people finally see your worth. It's not dependent on your achievements, appearance, popularity, or productivity. Wholeness is your birthright. But many of us were conditioned to believe otherwise. We grew up believing love had to be earned. That we had to perform perfect or please to be accepted. That we were too much or not enough, just as we were. So we became experts at shape-shifting. We wore masks. We edited ourselves. We said yes when we wanted to scream no. Why? Because we feared the consequences of being fully seen. We feared abandonment, rejection, disapproval. But here's the paradox. The more you chase approval, the further you drift from your true self. You become a reflection of everyone else's expectations and lose touch with your own soul. So how do you begin to return to yourself? You start by releasing the need for external validation as your compass. You learn to ask different questions. Not, what will they think of me? But instead, what do I think of me? Does this choice honor who I am? Am I acting from love or from fear? It's not easy at first. When you stop seeking approval, there's often a void, a silence that feels unfamiliar. Because for so long, noise filled that space. Likes, compliments, performance-based love. But in that quiet, you'll start to hear something else. Your truth. And when you hear it, you begin to realize. You are allowed to disappoint others to stay aligned with your soul. You are allowed to say no without explaining yourself. You are allowed to choose peace over performance. That's not selfish, that's sacred. Now let's get practical. How do you start living from this place of wholeness? Redefine your inner circle. Surround yourself with people who don't need you to shrink to feel comfortable. Those who honor your boundaries. Who celebrate your growth even when it challenges them. Practice solitude. Wholeness blooms in stillness. When you give yourself time to be alone, not to escape but to reconnect, you begin to realize you are never truly alone when you are deeply connected to yourself. Embrace your contradictions. You can be strong and sensitive, confident and confused, healing and still hurting. You don't have to fit into a clean narrative to be worthy. That's what makes you whole, not perfection but integration. Release comparison. No one's path is supposed to look like yours. You don't need to be ahead or behind, just here. Every time you compare your journey to someone else's highlight reel, you deny the sacredness of your own unfolding. Now let's go deeper. What if the very thing you think disqualifies you from being loved is actually your doorway to deeper connection? Your scars, your stumbles, your sensitivity, these are not flaws. They're fingerprints of your humanity. People aren't moved by your perfection. They're moved by your authenticity. And the truth is, the more you show up as your full self, the more you give others permission to do the same. This is how we shift the culture, not by performing wholeness but by embodying it. So what does life look like when you stop needing approval? It looks like freedom. Freedom to speak your truth without trembling. Freedom to rest without guilt. Freedom to walk away from what no longer honors your becoming. It looks like ease in your body, clarity in your choices, and love that doesn't feel like a transaction, but a reflection. Because here's the miracle. When you no longer need approval, you open yourself to real connection. Not with your masks but with your soul. You stop trying to be lovable and start being love. So as we close this chapter and this episode, let this truth settle into your heart. You were never broken. You were never missing anything. You've always been whole. You just forgot for a while. And now you remember. If you made it this far, take a moment to honor yourself. You've just taken a powerful step toward breaking free from the old patterns that kept you small, the need to be liked, to be chosen, to be enough in someone else's eyes. But the truth is, you've always been enough. And the love you've been searching for? It's been waiting within you all along. So as you move forward, remember, self-love isn't always loud. It's in the quiet choices, the boundaries you honor, the compassion you extend to yourself on the hard days, the way you show up, not to prove anything but to simply be who you are. If this episode spoke to something deep inside you, if it helped you feel a little less alone on your path, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this message today. Help spread this kind of healing, the kind that invites us all back home to ourselves. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting started. Until next time, take care of your heart. And never forget, you are whole. You are worthy. You are already enough.